Hey, everybody. Welcome, Professor. It's great to have you all here. The idea here is that we have an initial short statement or talk starting with our main guest of honor, Turing Award winner, Internet pioneer, Ethernet inventor, entrepreneur, professor. What did I miss? What else did you do?
What am I going to talk about?
It's up to you. You have as much time and as much space as you want. But yeah, we will be chatting a bit together. I'm humbly going to participate in this, but I would love the audience to have the opportunity to hear from your experience and your great knowledge.
How can you not attend a conference that has a chapter named after you? So I'm here to see how you handle this.
It's not an easy one. It's not an easy situation, but we have a lot of work to do.
So to make a long story short, let me go back to 1968, and the MIT in '68 was discovering its version of AI, and I was an undergraduate in that process, and it came time to graduate, and I had to write a thesis, an undergraduate thesis. So I recruited Marvin Minsky, who was one of the founders of AI, to be my advisor. And I wrote a thesis. I wrote the thesis, by the way, on a school bus returning from an MIT tennis match the night before it was due, so you could imagine. So I give it to Professor Minsky. He accepts it, but I could tell he didn't like it. And he sent me down the hall to work for another professor, Professor Licklider, who was a visionary for the internet. So instead of being an AI person, I became a networking person, and thanks to Marvin Minsky. May he rest in peace. So I don't know anything about AI because I got out of it in 1968.
And what was the topic? The topic of your thesis?
The topic of my thesis was a neuron model and some of its information processing capabilities. All copies of this dissertation have been destroyed. In the networking business, I went to the Xerox Research Center, and where we were inventing personal computing. A big argument could follow that, and I lucked out. There's a room full of us scientists, and we need a network for this. We were going to put, listen to that, we're going to put a personal computer on every desk. Why would you do that? Well, we did it, and I lucked out. I got the job of developing a network that would connect them together, and out popped in 1973 on May 22nd, Ethernet. By the way, nothing is invented on one day, so there was years on either side, but that was the day it got named Ethernet. And then my company prospered, and I became a professor. And I noticed this. My wife and I were both professors at the University of Texas, and she put on a startup contest for food startup. She was a food professor, and so she had the contest. It was open to anyone who wanted to join, and one of the teams, 19 of them were from Texas. The 20th team was from Slovenia. And what's even more amazing is they won the contest. This guy won the contest, so we had to put up with him. So that's, but then I learned that we have a chapter named after me, so I had to come be sure what was going to happen.
That everything is in order.
Yeah.
So far it is, I hope.
So in parallel, and I don't think they're related, I noticed that AI was suffering from this, it was booming, of course, but it was suffering from a number of what I call pathologies, one of which was fake news. But it seemed to be hamstrung. So I attended a conference on an island in the East River in New York City. Knowledge graphs was their topic, and they promised implicitly to solve the trust problem by having a network of knowledge. So suddenly I developed a hunch that knowledge networks and AI were going to converge. That the solution to the fake news problem was a knowledge base, and the knowledge graph looked like a winning way of collecting knowledge and expressing it. So then I started attending that. I think I've attended it 4 times now, but it's full of people who do what do you call them?
Ontologies?
Ontologies, yes. And they're completely different people from the ones who are doing AI. And they're converging even now as we sit here. But they've been working in parallel for decades, and now they're coming together. Do you have any suggestions of what I should talk about next?
Absolutely. I think you touched a great topic there with essentially AI and how it is fusing and converging with knowledge graphs. I remember you speaking about how you witnessed the history of AI and how it will fall and rise.
Right. Well, having been in AI since 1968 and out again, I've watched AI go like this. It booms and then it disappears, and then it comes back and then it disappears. And the principal determinant of that oscillation is the availability of data. So in the past, when AI has run out of data, it died. So what's different about this time? What's different is we have the internet. And so there's a really good chance that it's not going to die because of a lack of data, although it may die if the data is all fake. And so we have to be careful.
Absolutely. It's very interesting to hear such different angles on different areas of the industry now converging. You touched upon networking, and I'm sure you expected some questions on networking. So basically, with the role of networking and with your experience in going from why do we need a personal computer on every desk to why do we need, let's say, personal AI in every phone, we're kind of at that stage, I believe, where right now people are still not seeing the need for a network of AI. But
you've already answered the question. I can hear the question coming.
Yeah, okay. Keep it going then.
But you've already answered it, which is the thing that allowed us to get networking adopted. Why would you need I would go to conferences with a 2.94 megabit per second Ethernet, and sitting next to me is a guy with a 1200 baud modem. And he says, what do you need more than 1200 baud for? The characters are already scrolling past you in your terminal. If you used a megabit per second, it would go like this. So that was the state. But we managed to break through, and the rest is history. So how are we going to break through here? And you've already given the answer. Listening. That is, what does the world think it needs, and what language does it use, and how are we going to continue talking to them about the importance of the trust convergence that we're talking about?
And now reflecting back to a similar analogous situation in networking, you did mention some pathologies of the internet that you were not very fond of at the beginning, which made you think of solutions to things like spam and so forth. Could you reflect a little bit on the history of such problems that we have, as the main pathology today being things like fake news and fake content?
We're all familiar with the idea that when a new technology comes along, it may have positive benefits, but it usually has some negative consequences that you need to pay attention to. So in the case of the internet, the first pathology of the internet was security. 2 high school students in 1973 broke into the internet, and we had to start dealing with it. Someone had used the password admin. We've learned not to do that now. We don't do that anymore. But then the next pathology was pornography. And pornography is always an early participant. And the United States passed a law called the Communications Decency Act to eliminate pornography. It was declared unconstitutional a year later. but we completely eliminated pornography from the internet. There's no pornography. And the next pornography, and the big one, is advertising. We were annoyed when people started advertising their products on our baby on the internet. What is this? And so it was a pathology for about a year. And then it became the lifeblood of the internet. Advertising paid for everything. So that pathology flipped and became whatever the opposite of pathology is. Are those the pathologies?
I remember specifically, though, that you spoke about spam and how you had an idea to introduce some sort of micropayment system to stop it. Can you tell us more about that?
Those are two different stories, but there are email was the vehicle for advertising in those days, and we got too much of it, and it was almost the downfall of the internet. All this crap coming through the email system. So we learned how to filter it, and what was left is called spam. And do we talk about spam anymore? You do?
Yes,
let's
we do.
talk afterwards. I bet most of you have not used the word spam in a very long time. So the advertising as a pathology has been relegated to the unimportant section, and we are using advertising to pay for everything. But in the course of this, I came up with a solution to the email spam problem, which was to charge postage. So to send an email, you had to pay postage. And the postage I proposed was a fraction of a cent. But nobody liked the idea, even if it was a fraction of a cent. In fact, 2 people threatened me with death. I mean, I had to call the FBI and say, I got these 2 guys who are threatening to kill me over postage for emails. And the FBI looked into it and said it wasn't a serious threat. Yeah, easy for them to say. Yeah. Are those the 2 stories you wanted?
Yeah, because I like them particularly because in the present moment we have a similar spam problem, though it's no longer maybe as frequently called spam as it used to be. Rather, we're getting an enormous amount of content on the web that is questionable. It's most of it, the recent content is mostly generated by AI. I'm pretty sure everybody in this audience, by show of hands, who use like some sort of ChatGPT or something to write an email, or everybody, yeah. So thank you. And I'm not saying that you're producing spam, but I'm saying that there's more and more of content on the web being basically AI generated, with AI being prone to hallucination, and also people's character being prone to creating troubling content such as deepfakes and scams, which we'll talk about a lot today. That's kind of a new form of spam, but it's worse because it's not an email that you can kind of understand, oh, I didn't really want to get this advertising. You might be seeing your daughter calling you with a perfect image of her and video and her voice and asking you for help or whatever, and that's just like a mild version of it. So in a way, it's kind of like a new form of spam, and we really need to tackle that type of spam. Well, it's really hard.
So the situation you describe is one in which there's increasing pressure for filtering, because there's all this crap out there. And then we made a mistake. We asked Facebook and Google et al. To do filtering for us. And then they made a mistake. They agreed to do it. And the filtering is now happening in the wrong place. And I think my solution to this latter-day spam problem is to have each person define their own filters. Have an app for that. There may be an app for that. I just haven't run into it yet, in which you design your filtering. A little bit of New York Times, a little bit of Branimir's messages might get filtered through. I don't know. But if you design your own filter system, then you don't. This whole debate of the algorithm that Facebook uses is finessed. That's my suggestion for today. Anyone want to start that company? I think it has a lot of promise.
it's a great point, and it's something we align to very much as we really approach the system from a totally opposite perspective of centralizing all the algorithms in one place. And not just the algorithms, it's also about the data. So the ability to access or not access certain information is also managed by companies like Facebook and Google, and it's a little bit too much power to ask from anyone.
So be careful, you're talking about two important problems. One is too much email, that's spam. And the other one is wrong email or vicious email. And those are separate things, but they're both happening at the same time. So I'm working on, I have my own research project at MIT, and I've become a computational engineer again. And my first area of modeling is geothermal energy. And several months ago, I began that exploration, modeling geothermal situations and how to optimize the wells. And it occurred to me that I should ask GPT about this. So I spin around at my desk to GPT and I type, "Can you help me, please, design a geothermal well?" And she says, "Fantastic. Here it is." And she lays out, you want a depth of 5 kilometers, temperature 140 degrees, She lays out a design for a geothermal well. This took me completely by surprise. I had no idea she would do that. I assumed she would say something stupid, and it wasn't stupid. It was a great start for me to begin studying geothermal wells. So she and I have an ongoing conversation, and I've learned, one, not to trust anything she says. Well, for example, the kind of wells I prefer are coaxial, where you pump the cold water down the outer pipe and the hot water comes up the middle pipe. She gets it backwards over and over again. I keep telling her, no, the hot water comes up the middle pipe. She says, "Okay, I'll fix that." And then a day later, she's back putting the hot water in the wrong place. So you can't trust her, but the other thing we believe about AIs is that they're not humans, and humans are really cool. And we have ideas, and robots can't have ideas. They're just robots. No, that's wrong. She has come up with roughly 10 ideas that I didn't have before. So, for example, I was laying out an array of geothermal wells, and it looked like about a square kilometer of area, but a gigawatt of power, so it was worth doing. And she says, "Gee, it's a shame to have that square kilometer go to waste. Why don't you put a photovoltaic platform on top of it? Because otherwise that space is going to waste." She came up with that idea. I didn't say, "What about PV?" No, she noticed somehow, notices that there was a kilometer up for grabs, square kilometer up for grabs, and that maybe you could use it. And she came up with 10 of those so far. So robots, I think of her as a robot, they can have ideas, but you have to check them because the hot water is supposed to come up the center pipe and not the external pipe.
That's a fantastic story. I'm really glad that you're actually deeply involved with the current form of AI that we're experiencing mostly, which is the neural AI. It's booming a lot. Today we'll hear a lot about something called neurosymbolic AI, which is actually this combination of ChatGPT and the likes, and symbolic technology, symbolic AI, like knowledge graphs, obviously at the conference. And it's interesting because such ChatGPT-like systems you have to kind of train. It costs a lot of money and time to do, and then they're limited to this certain training set, and their characteristic is to guess.
Well, training is, excuse me for interrupting, but training is also, as an experiment, I said to her, "Forget everything that I've told you from the beginning of our relationship." She says, "Okay, I have forgotten everything you've told me." A few days later, she's telling me something I told her, and she forgot that she promised to delete everything that I told her. And somehow that knowledge And I still don't know, did it become part of the LLM, or is there like a side storage where she keeps my stuff over there, and does it leak into the main LLM? When does it get trained? When does the training incorporate stuff it learned through my exploration? I don't know.
That's a very good question. I wouldn't bet on exactly how ChatGPT does it either, but if I had to, I'd say that it stores it somewhere on the side, because training takes a lot of energy and money. But yeah, it's an interesting story. Let's test it on humans. Professor, please forget all of the $1 million you loaned me.
I spent it already.
Yes, this is gone. Yeah, but coming back to the dollars part, I really liked, and that's why I wanted to ask you about that idea of the micropayment, the 0.001 cent to eliminate spam, and how ridiculous that idea sounded to some people then. I believe that we're seeing today, and we'll be seeing throughout the conference actually, kind of a resurgence of that idea, because the economic element of it not only is useful for preventing potential spam-like activity, but it's also able to direct certain behavior. We're seeing very interesting developments lately in things like prediction markets, which are able to somehow very well predict the outcomes of events, which are basically based on a lot of these economic principles, and that's what.
So let me make a prediction. Since
Yes.
You mentioned it, you're going to discover there's a bunch of people out there who think that everything should be free, and they turn ugly. So you could say 0.0000, it's still not enough. It has to be completely free, or they'll be upset with you and threaten your life, probably, as happened to me. So I predict, watch out, here come an army of people who think everything should be free. And by the way, everything should not be free. Free is a really low price.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Luckily, I have this bunch of community friends to defend us when the free people come to fight. But yeah, it's an interesting idea, and we're really looking into exploring it. Another interesting idea, and I remember you talking about it previously, is this notion of information source, specifically in cases like the one you mentioned with ChatGPT. Is it using your discussion? Is it using other people's information? And I remember you spoke about the importance of the source in Ethernet as you were building out the layers of the Ethernet. So I have two questions. One is, if you could, let's say, build Internet back today, which layers would you add, knowing what you know today? And how important was it in the layers that you already built to add the source packet address, if I'm not mistaken?
So ever since the beginning in '73, it's always been the internet has this beautiful thing, which I'm sure you all heard of, the 7 layers of the internet. Very powerful, probably mostly successful, most of the success of the internet. And Ethernet, where I was working, was down here, level 1, level 2, and people would ask me about security. And I would say, oh, that's a higher level problem. I'm down here in the plumbing. You want to talk to those people up there about security. So I would just blow it away. So one thing I would do is we made these packets, Ethernet packets, that carried internet packets, encapsulated them and carried the internet packets around. And both of them had, at different levels, had a destination address and a source address. And it had a source address. So we would leave it all 0 and send it up. And no one ever looked at the source address ever again. And I'd fix that. For example, the first router you encounter should probably ask the question, should this packet be coming from this direction? A very simple question. It's not, maybe by now someone's started to ask that question, but for years and years, decades, people would let those source addresses just go by. Is that packet coming from the correct direction, or is it something else? And you can tell that right away, that the first router, and I'd do that. I would have done that had I knew what was coming.
Which is a great point, and is we as the upper layer people who are not building the plumbing, but rather really in the 6th and 7th layer of the internet, we believe that the source of information on that higher order than packet level is the critical thing, because that is one of the most important things you can use to distinct if information should or should not be relevant in any case.
A relevant fact is that the people up there are the billionaires, and we're just simple plumbers down here. We're not billionaires. It's just carry your packets. Don't look at our source address. What do we care?
So what do we need to do then to not have...
You want to get up there and become a billionaire as soon as possible.
Yeah, not a bad idea. Then you'll be asking me for loans. But that's a very good point. So coming to the billionaires and coming to like a few of them basically tending to become the owners of what the new layer will be, which is the AI layer. How do we really get to a point where we don't have to trust just a few people in the world? What do you think needs to happen, and what kind of historical things have you seen that you think were good examples? I remember you mentioned when we discussed one yesterday over lunch, the example of Microsoft and how you suggested them that what to do with the browser at the time. Could you share a bit on that? Is that okay to share?
Well, I think the remedy to the problem you pose is anti-monopoly legislation. So we've dealt with monopolies before. We have laws about that. We don't need any new laws. The existing laws and applied to the big tech companies, I think, would solve the problem. So with the mistake Microsoft made, and then I made my mistake, Microsoft came up with a browser, and there were other browsers, but they put their browser on the home page, and so you had to search for the other ones. And so I wrote a column in Computer World saying this was anti-competitive behavior. Not successful competitive behavior, but anti-competitive behavior. And then Bill sent his army of PR people to my office. I was publisher of InfoWorld at that time. And they said to me, "Bill is really disappointed in you." You see, there is a distinction which I emphasize between being a successful competitor, which means you can dominate the market with success, is different from dominating the market through anti-competitive behavior. And putting their browser on the front page and everybody else on the back pages, or if at all, that's anti-competitive. And the Justice Department went after them and sued them, and Bill's disappointment
turned true.
grew uncontrollably, and he's one of those people.
So you told me of an acronym you named. How do we tackle that we don't have only a few of those people? What was it? And what's the solution?
My acronym for this is FOCACA, and that's not Yiddish. It's an acronym. Freedom of choice among competing alternatives, FOCACA. And as long as you can maintain FOCACA, progress will accelerate. But if you interrupt freedom of choice among competing alternatives, that tends to diminish progress. That's what I'm talking about.
FOCACA. We need to put that on our website.
But you have to say it's not Yiddish. It sounds like Yiddish, and in fact, it sounds like a bad thing in Yiddish, so you don't want to go there.
It is 100% basically aligned with all the principles that OriginTrail stands for. We stand for having many entities, many people, many agents, many companies being part of the same knowledge network, sharing
and why did
ideas.
You, yeah, but all that sounds nice, but why did you call it Metcalfe?
Well, because we see inspiration in the early networks and how they were built and how internet basically democratized the world and had everybody connected, including the effects of the laws that we observed named after you, which I believe you didn't name, but you knew this question was coming.
But I have named my second law. Metcalfe's second law. Metcalfe's first law is the value of a network grows as the square of the number of attachments. The second law is much simpler. When you take a picture with your iPhone, look at it very carefully and consider it and appreciate its nuances and look at it for a while, because you're never going to see it again.
I love the second law. We should put that on the website too. But yeah, it's impressive to look at the first law as well, with all of the, which was, by the way, not named by you, but was observed.
George Gilder named it Metcalfe's law in his book Telecosm, but also in Forbes magazine.
And what do you think? What do you think about the law? How did it show that it was actually a law, a true law?
Well, for the longest time, I got the benefit of the doubt, and people just, yeah, Metcalfe's law, yeah. But then we also sought numerical validation. Moore's law, which is the greatest law of all time, was numerically true. So the pressure grew that the Metcalfe's law should be numerically true, and I wrote a paper on that. And then 4 other people wrote papers showing the growth. The example I used was Facebook's first 10 years obeyed the law. The other 4 papers were all written in China. I don't know why, but when I reference people supporting Metcalfe's law numerically, I list the 4 Chinese papers too.
Fantastic, fantastic. And just since we have a few more minutes left, one last question from me, and then we can perhaps open it up for the audience. Do you believe that just as Metcalfe's law applies in the networks of computers, that it applies to knowledge, networks of knowledge?
Say, I didn't really understand the question.
So does Metcalfe's law apply to more than just physical networks?
Oh, yes, of course. And I checked on that. So there was, I've forgotten his name, but a very famous, not that famous, sociologist did research and calculated that you could forget the internet. The human being's cognitive ability was limited to 100, I think the number was 150 friends.
Dunbar's number. His name is
Yes,
Dunbar.
Dunbar's number, 150 friends. That's, your brain could not really, to be fair, handle more than 150 friends. So I called up Facebook and said, how many groups do you have, and what's the average number of people in the groups? And the number was like 146. Not that number, but like that number. And it was right on Dunbar's number. Now, that's an unexpected result, because I would think that the tools that Facebook gives you for sustaining friendship would make that number much higher on Facebook. But then I realized that that number was the average of a growing network. So Facebook was growing wildly during this time. So it had a lot of small new networks that hadn't really fruitioned yet. And so if I were to go back and do that study again, I expect I'll find something really close to Dunbar's number, even closer.
Very, very, very interesting. So we have a few minutes left. Does anybody want to join this chat?
We have a minute
Have
and
a
23
question?
seconds left.
Oh, we do? Okay. Okay, so then perhaps one last question from me then, and then in this minute, we can finish it. So looking at the future of computing, of AI, and the problems that we're here today to talk about, which is trust and how do we know what is true, what do you think are some guidelines and principles we should aim to strive for based on your experience? How do we make the future bright and we don't collapse as model collapse and as just society might collapse under all of the post-truth fake information?
Well, we should listen. We should fight anti-competitive behavior and adopt FOCACA as our slogan. Our networks should be interoperable, not certified, but interoperable. Because we discovered in the proliferation of Ethernet that people were calling something Ethernet and showing that it was certified compatible with the standard. It just didn't work. So we changed the method to interoperability testing. So when other people do distributed knowledge graphs, you should hurry up and be compatible with them and test them and visit them and invite them to come to your place. So interoperability rather than certifiability should be the operating principle. Is that enough yet?
If you believe so, feel.
I'm dying to find out what my chapter is.
Oh, yeah. The chapter is going to be,
Trust
revealed
convergence,
throughout the day.
I bet. Trust convergence, is
Yes.
that right?
Yes,
Okay.
you're pretty much on it. But yeah, we will be talking about convergence of technologies that support trust, namely blockchains, knowledge graphs, which support trust in reasoning on the AI side, and generative AI, or the LLMs that we've all been seeing boom lately.
There's a powerful person in this room who just increased this number to 8 minutes and 30 seconds.
It's an act of God. Whoever that person is.
Was that a mistake, or do we have to make up some more stuff?
That's for the questions.
For the questions, yes. So,
Okay.
so we can move on to that. We have a first question over there.
Hello, hi. My name is Dan. I think the internet changed our generation in a way that we're more connected than ever. And I also got a child just a few months ago. And when you were talking about communicating with ChatGPT, you were actually reflecting as she. And my question to you goes, let's say my kid in 15 years or 20 years will have probably a virtual friend in a physical form that will create a perfect friendship. Do you think that the AI and this whole connectivity and enormous amount of information and data that will be formed in a physical person could create a cultural and actually a humanity, somehow a dislocation between how my kid will have friends? Just for example, I have many friends on social networks. They're fake friends. So how will my kid create friendships when they will be able to have robots as perfect friends? What do you think about that? I know it's dark to think about these things, but I'm actually 100% convinced that this will happen. I see it already in Japan and in some conference around the world on robotics.
You've seen the movie Her, I think it was called Her.
That sad one, yeah.
Yeah, is that the one which ends badly with...
But that's just communication. It was not put in a physical form. The
which
physical
one
form would
is
be
well, then there's another movie.
iRobot or
What's that?
Companion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not really a question. In any case, I'm not sure I know the answer.
But yeah.
But I have a recent birth of two granddaughters, so I'm in a similar situation with one generation in between. And she lives in Rio de Janeiro, one of them, and we're in touch with her through video. And she now looks at the phone, and she looks at us in the screen. Doesn't talk to us yet, but so what you suggested is coming true. We're using it to kind of build a relationship with her. Grandparents like to be called Papa and Mama. We're struggling to reach that goal, and that we're using the phone. So the phone, in a way, is trying to make a friend for her. And it's from the sound of your question, you're dreading this. That is the existence of a physical entity that was your friend. You're not looking forward to that, I can tell.
I'm not looking at that at all. Like the problem is, can you imagine I will be able to create my own friend that would be a perfect fit for me, Why would I want to have any other friends?
Because there's more than one kind of friendship.
But in Japan, in Tokyo, exactly right now, the society is collapsing on this matter of, interconnecting, meeting, hanging out together. They just do the work, and then they have virtual friends. They're more introverted than ever before. Is this technology somehow closing us up as a society, or opening up as in the time of internet that we were actually starting to be connected?
I believe good things are happening as long as we take care. We handle the pathologies and we focus on the pathologies. And I think you wouldn't have one friend. You would have a bunch of different friends for different purposes, if I go along with that future. See, right now it's a good thing. If we didn't have this phone connection to our granddaughter, we would have no connection to her at all, except an occasional trip to Rio de Janeiro. And now we get to talk to her every day, and she's beginning to notice us. So I guess she's implementing your vision. It just isn't flushed out in physical. Do they have humanoid robots in Japan? I'm behind the times. I need to look into that.
Do we have any more questions? Anybody want to pitch in? There's a hand.
First of all, wonderful DKGCon. Second of all, I have a question. So you worked on building pretty much, you're the pipeline guy, you're a plumber, internet plumber. As a result of AI, of course, this is pretty much changing the upper levels of the internet. Do you foresee, as a result of AI, that the lower levels also start changing structure, form? Of course, you just talked about acknowledging the source address on packets. That's like a change that needs to take place as well, right? But do you see even more radical change? Like what were the experimental Ethernets that we didn't know about that couldn't exist at that time because technology wasn't there yet? Like, what do you see taking place in the future at the lower levels of the internet?
Well, the straightforward things are happening. The IEEE that makes standards, in particular the Ethernet standard, is now standardizing 800 gigabit per second Ethernet. The first Ethernet was 2.9 megabits, which was astronomically fast in 1973. Now they're doing, so there's that dimension of Ethernet, and it's proceeding apace, faster. The underlying technology, by the way, I'll remind you, is called packet switching. And notice that second word. I claim that a benefit of packets isn't just speed, it's also the implicit ability to route them, the switching capability. All right, so now over in the mobile world, you got, I think we're up to 6 now, 5 or 6. Oh yeah, we have 5, we're going to 6. Latency's dropping, cost is dropping. So there's rapid progress over there in telephone land too. Oh, so now you have Wi-Fi versus LTE. By the way, do you know what LTE is short for? Have you ever seen LTE? On your phone it says LTE. The telephone company would have you believe that it stands for long-term evolution. It actually means leads to Ethernet. So increasing mobility, lower latency, lower cost, higher speeds, they're all happening. The internet has never been, slight exaggeration, has never been bandwidth limited or switching limited. There was a time when we were stuck using 50 kilobit per second modems, but that was a small window. In fact, AT&T said that the copper lines you had in your house connecting your phone couldn't carry more than 14 kilobits per second. And they were saying this while you could buy a 50 kilobit per second modem. So Shannon's law has been violated over there in AT&T. IBM?
ISDN.
ISDN.
Yeah.
Or 128 if you link the two channels together. Yeah. I was once a champion of ISDN, and boy, did I regret it. I still don't know ISDN. Yeah. But
we have
ISDN
time?
used to be the definition of broadband. So we would say, it's our goal to have all Americans connected with broadband, by which we meant 64 kilobits per second. And now our standards are higher.
Bob, great guidance and wisdom. Quick question, and there's one coming after me. In your experience in maturing in the networking industry, what kind of leadership characteristics are necessary to make that breakthrough for a company?
Ooh. Communication. And it was certainly, communication was brought to my company by our first CEO after me, Bill Krause, was into, so every Friday at 10 o'clock, we had an all-company meeting, and everything was shared with all the employees. They made us, by the way, the SEC made us stop doing that when we went public, because they wanted you to control that information. But we felt it was important to share sales numbers and customer wins and problems with the whole company, and that worked for us. So it would be an answer to a partial answer to your question. Another thing that we did that I think worked in Silicon Valley is that after you got backed by some VCs, I did, and then your company grows a little and it looks like it's going to succeed. The VCs ask you to serve on other boards, which I did. And their notion was that was a way of broadening your horizon, being able to see things going on as beyond somebody else's board. So that may be a version of communication, but it was another technique that was used. So the generalization of that would be that the CEO, and not just the CEO, the operating team should be communication oriented, not keeping secrets, except for the Securities and Exchange Commission. All my company, all 35 of us were founders in my lexicon. When the SEC came, they made me stop. Said, no, you don't have 35 founders, you have 2, and there they are. And that was disappointing to me, because I wanted everyone to be a founder.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Incredible talk. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned about plumbing, and it made me think of Geoffrey Hinton's famous quote that he's concerned that AI is going to automate most people out of a job and that they all need to become plumbers. I disagree with him strongly around this. But taking the plumbing of the internet, the plumbing of telecommunications in general as well, increasingly we're seeing telecommunications companies under terrible financial pressure, while yet the demand for bandwidth and telecommunications type services is through the roof. It's almost thought of as a human right. How do you see that industry moving forward? I was interested about the micropayment point that Bran made as well. And does that have any part to play? Do you think the telecommunications industry is going to change as a result of the fact that...
Well, my attitude toward the human right applied to Ethernet. Ethernet's a human right, or 6G is a human right. My attitude toward that's the same as my attitude toward free, which is it's an impractical dream, and if you pursue it, you will fail and make a mess at the same time. So I think the competition currently going on in telecom is really great and healthy, and it's fun to watch the ads on TV and watch. Well, it's only after the third time that it's. I used to sell advertising. I ran a magazine called F, where I learned how to sell advertising. It's a really complicated, sophisticated thing. But one of the principles was you have to show them the ad 5 times before they'll really be impacted by it. And then you watch TV, and there it is, 5 times. They read the same deck of cards. I'm not sure I answered your question, but this human right to Ethernet thing, that's a dead end.
Fantastic. And I guess for Kaka that you mentioned earlier, which has immediately made an indelible impression on me.
Which movie?
For Kaka.
The acronym.
Yes.
Not Yiddish.
But that competition is a healthy thing, as you say, and
Yes.
we should be encouraging. Thank you so much. It's brilliant.
We're down to 0 now.